I mean, it's the fastest growing economy in the world. It is.
Really?
It is.
Are you sure?
Fastest growing economy in the world. Please have a look.
I think we're above you. Low-key, nah, I think that's cap.
Hey, GPT, what's the fastest growing economy in the world?
Hey, right now, India is often cited as the fastest growing major economy in the world.
As the fastest growing economy in the world. My name is Jay Kanwa and I am not media trained. A little bit about me. I was born in South Beach, Florida. I am Indian, so both my parents are Indian, but predominantly grown up here in the UK, went to the boarding school out here. When I was about 21 years old, I launched a tech company called Zeus. Essentially what Zeus does is we develop software for a large manufacturer to make their supply chains more efficient, being able to save them a lot of cost in the process by using AI algorithm. I think the first milestone that was massive for us, and I'd say this put us on the map and really validated what we were doing. We did a deal with a very, very large business here in the UK. Now, essentially what that deal did, and I don't need to go into too much detail, but it exited us from the UK. But what it also did at the same time was it made us, I'd say, almost like the tech arm of that business. Now, this business is a 100-year-old business, so it really put us on the map. But it also showed that what we've really worked hard for in the last 4 to 5 years in developing something was actually, we were doing the right thing, and we have actually been doing the right thing. So I'd say that was the first milestone for Zeus. Yeah, so the Forbes thing was actually a big shock to Clem and I. We were actually, and this is a funny story, we were on holiday. We got a message from someone in our marketing team saying, hey guys, there is this opening for Forbes 30 under 30, and you guys really need to do this, fill this form out. Now, in the moment we're like, okay, let's do this. We thought it would be a quick form. Now, an hour and a half later, we're still sitting there on page number 60 of the form, answering different questions. So really, we weren't necessarily prepared for how long that form was going to be. 3 months later, we wake up one day and all of a sudden we are a part of the next class of Forbes 30 under 30. That was not only was it a shock, it was a pleasant surprise. We've benefited a lot since that day. So I think all in all, when it comes to Forbes, it was something that we didn't necessarily expect. But when it happened, we not only really cherished that moment, but it was very important for us to make use once we actually got named into the class. The first thing that's actually coming to my mind, and it's quite cliche, is Eye of the Tiger. I don't know why it's coming into my mind right now, but when you said Zeus, and when I've been thinking about my team and how we actually go about things, but the journey I think that we've been on, I think Eye of the Tiger, which is not a very me song, I wouldn't say. It's not, but it's something that I think really I associate with Zeus. It's a song that I don't necessarily listen to ever. However, when you mentioned Zeus, it's the first one that came to my head. I think I would be in the 13th minute. I've had the sort of initial start of the football game where I've sort of come out the blocks pretty heavy. I think now is the time where the entire team is sort of settling into the game. So really, the next few minutes, I'd say, and the next phase of my life is really about scoring the first goal or two.
So you haven't scored any goals yet. You scored some pretty big goals in your career, no?
I'd say I've scored goals here and there, but if you're actually asking me about a football match and where I want to be in my life, I wouldn't say that I've scored a goal yet, no. Some people may call it goals. To me, that is not a goal. I haven't necessarily scored from my own perspective. Something that still actually makes me laugh today. In the moment, it did not make me laugh. It was actually one of the saddest moments from my sort of, I'd say, teenage years. We were on holiday, me and a lot of my best friends, out having a late night. We come back very, very late, I'd say early in the morning, maybe 6, 7 a.m. It was a very tropical destination. We had just got back. We were essentially packed and ready to leave for the airport. As everybody entered the house, I was actually the last person to enter. So all the boys sort of entered before me. As I'm entering, I haven't actually even walked through the door, but I start hearing screams. As I walk in, I go into the first room where I hear the scream from, and I see the entire room is a complete mess. Bags are open, laptops are not there, passports are not there, clothes are all over the floor. Every single person's room has been robbed. My first thought was, I need to run upstairs and have a look at my room, right? I go upstairs and my room is untouched. My passport's there, my jewelry is there, my money is there, my clothes are all there. However, it makes me laugh, and when I speak to the same friends today, they'll laugh about it too, because I was actually, luckily enough, the only person that didn't get robbed. The only person that stayed at home that night was actually sleeping in the room next to me. Most robberies are inside jobs. They knew that he was sleeping there. Nobody touched my room or his.
So are they thinking that you and him are part of the inside job?
Hopefully not. We looked at the CCTV the next morning and we saw 2 guys, 5:30 a.m., tank tops, shorts, slippers, nothing covering their faces. They come in, they know exactly where to go, and on their way out, they're wearing my friend's bags. They are playing around with all our clothes. It was a pretty tormenting story at the time. However, now when you look back at it, it's something that, will live with me, and I'm sure with everybody else forever. I think from a life perspective, growing up, I was very much, as I said earlier, I have Indian parents, culturally very Indian. They expect a lot from you whilst you're growing up. Now, I think in terms of when you asked me about pivot in life itself, I think what I realized was the hard work that I put in growing up was more for my parents. Now, that doesn't mean I don't do things for them today. However, I think growing into my own, I've realized that there are other things in different facets of life, but also in my own, to do with my own character and how I actually want to grow as a person, where I don't necessarily do the things that are right on paper. I want to do things that actually entice me and I'm actually passionate about. So I'd say the biggest pivot for me is actually more than just something specific. It's more about the mentality that I go about life. I think when I go into, for example, you mentioned a boardroom, right? I think what's very important for me is confidence. Now, the way in which we work and the industry that we work in, it is not necessarily a very young or sexy industry per se. We are in the room with very, very experienced people that have been in this industry for 30 to 40 years, and they really, really know what they're talking about. So from my perspective, and I think Clem would say exactly the same thing, it is all about being able to show that you can actually sit in that room and you can actually have a proper conversation with that person about something that they are probably more of an expert in and really have been in that industry for 30 to 40 years. So for me, the most important thing is when you walk into a boardroom, I am in most cases the youngest person in that room by a mile, but not showing that from a actual linguistic perspective, but also being able to have a conversation where if you actually didn't see me or I wasn't on video, you wouldn't realize that I was 30, 40 years younger than that person. So I think that's the most important when it comes to energy. And I think it's the same when you're walking onto a football pitch. If you're good enough, you're old enough. You've just watched the Champions League final last week, right? You've seen this French kid, Desiree Doué, come out of nowhere, burst onto the scene. When you actually think about him, this entire year, people have been talking about another teenager called Lamine Yamal. So Desiree Doué actually was you'd say overlooked in many games, but also throughout the season. This guy out of nowhere, people thought that we actually thought that we wanted Yamal to win the Champions League, but what we didn't know was that actually we wanted Desiree Doucouré.
He was the desired one.
Although I wouldn't say that I fully grew up in India. I think my family and my parents, they did an amazing job in really keeping me, I'd say, grounded, but also keeping me as close to Indian culture as possible. So I've been going back, I'd say 2 to 3 times a year since I was a kid. What's really important, what's really special, I think, about when I do go back to India is I'd call it family vibes. Even with people that are not necessarily your family, everybody feels like family. You know, I may have grown up with someone that I don't necessarily keep in touch with every single day. We don't necessarily speak that much. However, when I go back to India, I know that it is as if nothing's ever changed. That person is still like my brother. They are family friends, but they mean so much to me. And it is all because of the job that my parents did in making sure that I never forgot where I came from. So, you know, I live at home, I eat Indian food every single day, just as an example. Right? That's my favorite food. We have, you mentioned the colors. So there's a festival called Hewwy in India where you essentially throw color on people. You use, you use water balloons, etc. And whether we're in India or not, we will still celebrate that with our friends from all over the world, whether we are in India or not. So those small little things, I think, those are the reasons why I think I still hold India very, very close to my heart. You know, every time I go back to India, let's say I take a few friends back with me, there's a consensus that, you know, they're gonna get a bad stomach. They're not used to it. It's like, oh, you know, I've never been, I can't eat this and I can't eat that. I'm gonna eat boiled potatoes and chicken. That whole thing and that whole aspect for me is slept on. I think India in the last 3 to 5, even 10 years now it's the fastest growing economy in the world. It is.
Really?
It is.
Are you sure?
Fastest growing economy in the world. Please have a look.
I think we're above you. Loki, nah, I think that's cap.
Hey, GPT, what's the fastest growing economy in the world?
Hey! Right now, India is often cited as the fastest growing major economy in the world.
Yeah, I mean, as the fastest growing economy in the world. Yeah. I mean, look, that's a great question, and once again, I'd go back to my parents and saying that they always put into my head that the people that are very, very close to you should always be kept close to you. Be very loyal. You know, not everybody in this world is loyal, and I think all of us have been on the wrong side of that in different times of our lives. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't ourselves always be as loyal and keep the people that you really, really care about as close to you as possible. You know, never judge someone before you actually know that person. You may go out and you may meet someone who is the quietest person at a dinner table that you don't say a word to. A lot of people in that situation would be very quick to jump and say, yeah, that guy, I didn't even like that guy, you know, because he didn't say anything to me the whole night. But that doesn't mean that the next time you see them in a different scenario, maybe that person is not necessarily equipped or doesn't feel as comfortable being on a big dinner table versus you guys sitting and playing FIFA, right? So don't ever judge a book by its cover. I think that's the most important. First impression is very important. However, it's not the most important thing. You know, as I just said, and as you just said, you know, someone may not say a word to you, but then 3-4 times you meet them and now you're actually like, actually, this guy's a very, very nice person. I think if everything goes right, I will never be satisfied. I think what I've seen, and I would point to my grandfather, who, in my opinion, has achieved everything that someone would want to achieve with a very, very large family, kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, a conglomerate business. But at his age today, he will be the first person at work, in the office, and the last person out. So I think if everything goes right, I will continue to work every single day. I will have a family, a nice house, kids, and I think the most important thing is leaving a legacy, people remembering me. A hill that I'm willing to die on is that comedy itself is dead. growing up, and we spoke about acting, like growing up, I think vulgar, funny comedy was always my favorite type of movie to watch. And I think this is because of cancel culture and because of, I think people are maybe a bit too sensitive in today's day. But I think comedy itself is dead. Bro, when was the last time you saw a movie like Pineapple Express or
Yeah, no,
like
really
This Is the End or like The Interview, like all your James Franco, but like you don't see that kind of stuff anymore because people are scared that if they actually make a movie like that, they're done.
gonna get cancelled.
Yeah, 100%, because it makes the money, right? And I think this ties very closely with social media, right? And that's when I'm talking about like a hill that I'm willing to die on, social media to some extent I think is the best thing that's happened for the human race because of things like this, where you can actually talk about how you feel. You have different channels, and that's what this is, right? Usually I'm in a suit giving an interview, but I think seeing a different side of me is very, very important, but I still have to be very careful, right? And I think that's an aspect of social media that I don't necessarily like. I mean, the advice I'd give to myself is never get taken advantage of.
Hmm.